everyone, and welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. All right. Oh, sorry about that. Well, I'm not sure how long tonight's stream is gonna be. We'll play it by ear. I know we left off right in the middle of a fight last time, so I think what we'll do is we'll just jump straight back into where we left off. All right, well, here we go.
いける、このまま。
Before its arm had a chance to fully retract, she charged the puppet. It was a risky gamble, but her overall chances were slim to begin with. The scales tipped in her favor. If her predictions were correct, there were two ways she would die. One was from a fin shot, fired at that range. And the other? The other was if the puppet's attack pattern was beyond her ability to foresee. Instantaneous mass transfer, otherwise known as mass displacement. Immediately after Aoko dodged the puppet's arm, something smashed into her abdomen. A head-on collision from its shoulder felt like a rocket. But where had the ability to propel itself come from? Puppets like this were not built to have the ability to jet around like that. Doing everything in her power to stay conscious in spite of the pain, Aoko could just make out what had happened.
今の推進力じゃなくて牽引力。
Yes, the puppet's arm had not returned to its body. It was lodged in the wall and reeled itself in from the other direction.
そんなのありか。
Yes, Aoko, apparently it can do that. Oh man, this puppet is a nightmare. Swallowing her surprise, she hastily pulled herself back up. Her abdomen, specifically her diaphragm, had been dealt a significant blow. The attack left her disoriented. Thankfully, the puppet was surprisingly lightweight. Her bones and organs were intact, and she had sustained no life-threatening damage. She was having a hard time breathing, however. She was shaken, though she managed to keep her calm. In another 2 seconds, she'd be back on her feet. Not that was 2 seconds too long. She told herself to calm down, that she was already calm. She'd only briefly lost her bearings. She was fine. She could recover her breath and her vision later, if only her body would move.
Intelectus non necessaris est, iusque escart. O nostro sentiabulat fit. Ratio fix tantum est. Dolores nitium cerebrum fit.
Above her, Aoko could hear the rap noise of a powerful force.
足、動け。
Her what noise?
どっちに行けば。
She could once more feel the touch of death.
E salvatio, e salvatio, e salvatio.
The puppet was so close that Aoko could reach out and touch it. That also meant that it could reach out and kill Aoko.
こいつの右腕の死角に入れる。
By intuition alone, Aoko rolled over the puppet's right flank. Its arm was still embedded in the wall. From here, it could not attack. She had made the right decision, and her dizziness faded.
Intellectus non necessaris est, pius quiescat. Nostro rasentiabulat fit. Ratio fix tantum est. Dolores nitium creburum fit.
Aoko pulled herself back up. It was her turn. Or like, maybe not? This puppet is like an epic nightmare to fight. It was only an instant. Within its labyrinth of mirrors, she saw an image of herself.
Vis salvatio.
Wait, did the puppet just blow itself up? A blinding, brilliant light flashed. Lacerations appeared across the walls. At the last moment, Aoko managed to thicken the magical energy running through her veins into a primitive form of magecraft resistance. It barely saved her from what must have been the puppet's ace in the hole. The puppet bore a striking resemblance to Aoko. This powerful curse was not satisfied with stopping Aoko's heart, but destroying her entire being. Aoko did not even have the time to be shocked. This was her chance for a counterattack. The puppet's balance was unsteady, its right arm still embedded in the wall. Aoko prepared to give its defenseless body a strong kick, but her knees buckled and she collapsed into a heap on the floor.
Vivo in somno, solitare putores cuniferis. Ictius meus obitus dies, et meus natibus dies, te obeam.
Sudden nausea and lightheadedness overcame Aoko. Her body temperature began to rapidly lower.
しま、こいつ呪いをばらまいてるんだった。
Seriously? It's just been filling the whole area with a curse. Fucking rude, man. She noticed, too late. The puppet's curse circled the hall. The curse chant that the puppet used as a source of power doubled as a defense mechanism, crippling those who drew near with illness. She bore the full brunt to the entire time she was in close proximity to it. Although Aoko had magic circuits, she was succumbing as Sojiro had. Hey, King Ultima. No, the puppet is speaking Latin, actually. Languidly, she forced her disorienting body to jump back. Her deteriorating body.
負けるか。
With all the energy she could muster, she forced her way past exhaustion. The exhaustion caused by the curse. However, Aoko's blood pressure took a steep nosedive, not from the curse-induced apnea, but from what appeared in front of her. I'm not sure why it sounds like French, but it is 100% Latin. Yeah, it was confirmed in, I believe, the last stream that it was speaking Latin. Aoko confirmed it for us. They stood in perfect harmony. In front of Aoko, the automata that shared her face, its left arm held out like an arrow. The deadly weapon shot forward and honed in on her heart. Then, a moment before it made contact,
危ない。
wait, is Shojiro back? The moment she heard that fearless voice, completely out of place in this storm of violence, Aoko's body was pulled forcibly to one side. That should be forcibly, as far as I'm concerned. Once again, the extending arm cut through empty air. While the puppet quickly retracted its left arm, Shojiro took the brief opportunity to take Aoko by the hand and flee at full speed. Shojiro ran through the corridor as fast as he could, only stopping when he had put enough distance between them and the puppet. I don't know, man, that damn puppet's pretty
その
friggin' fast.
考えてみると
Though he had saved her, she looked angry rather than grateful. This did not keep Shojiro from saying his piece.
明日はどうも忙しいみたいなんだ。
In other words, let's finish this today. A rather awkward proposal. Yeah, well, considering they originally both came here so Aoko could kill Shojiro, yeah, that is a rather awkward proposal. Aoko remained silent. She was also rather angry. Not that she could figure out what made him tick, nor because he'd returned after escaping. Not even because he was spouting his typical airheaded lines. Wow. Blah, blah. Gotta get my tongue to work proper today. It was, she supposed, that instant. The fact that when he grabbed her hand, her mind had gone completely blank. Aoko found it unforgivable. I'm not sure if he's confessing his feelings so much as... Because I think Shojiro just recently figured out that he came here... Aoko invited him here specifically to kill him. I mean, he figured it out pretty quick when he met up with her, and the first thing she did was try and blast him with a magical bullet. So... I'm not sure if he's confessing or just... I'm not sure what he's up to, actually. Which beckoned the response.
あなた、正気？
You know, I'm questioning that very thing. Is he insane? In the heat of the moment, she blurted it out before she could stop herself.
それとも自殺願望でもあったわけ？私もあいつも、あんたなんか殺す対象に過ぎないのよ。少なくとも、恩を売る相手じゃない。言っとくけど、私、助けられたぐらいで曲がる信念は持ち合わせていないから。
I gotta say, that's cold. Shojiro nodded clearly, unperturbed.
青崎がそんな可愛らしいもんじゃないのはこの夜だけで骨身に染みてるよ。
She found herself slightly offended.
けど君は勘違いをしてるから少し正そう。あいつの狙いは青崎だけじゃない。君だけじゃなく俺も殺す気だと思う。
She was having none of it. Her eyes shot daggers his way.
話は最後まで聞く。どうしてかっていうと、1階の入り口あるだろ、あの細長い通路。なんでかあそこから先に進めないんだ。逃げたくても逃げ出せなくて、仕方なく戻ってきた。
Aoko's eyes widened ever so slightly in amazement. She felt admiration rather than shock that her enemy would go to such lengths.
それに、さっきので完全に敵扱いされた。あの人形、こっちをじろっと睨んできたし。いや、一瞬でよく見えなかったけど、生きた心地しなかったな。青崎も気をつけた方がいい。多分よっぽど怖い顔をしているに違いないぞ。あれ。
Oh man, probably not the best thing to say, Shojiro.
それはご親切にどうも。
You dummy.
うん。なんでこれはもう他人事じゃないんだ。青崎と人形。結論として、どっちが勝っても俺は殺されてしまうんじゃないか？
I suppose he's got a point.
そうね。そこまでやってるなら、目撃者は消すでしょうね。私みたいに。
だろ？でも、俺はあいつには殺されたくない。
Oh, you'd rather Aoko kill you. Well, I mean, fair. Fair.
え？
His words were decisive. As Aoko looked up at him, she could swear he was trying to encourage her. It was then that she realized Sojiro was looking even worse than before.
ちょっと待って。大丈夫なの？あなた。
Yeah, probably not.
まあ、醤油を一升瓶飲むよりはマシではないかと。
Wait, why would you drink an entire bottle of soy sauce? What would possess anyone to do that? He tried to make light of the situation, but his forehead was clearly drenched in sweat.
そうか。さっき人形に近づいたから。
How could he possibly be able to withstand a curse that made even Aoko nauseous? She bit her lip, annoyed at herself for not noticing this earlier. Shojiro was such an airhead that she didn't even pause to consider his plight.
下で隠れていようとか思わなかったの？その方がどう考えても安全でしょ？
She really could not understand him at all.
それは青崎が言うセリフじゃないな。でもまあ、長話をしている時間もない。そろそろ追いついてくる頃だ。
He turned to look down the corridor. The crackling sounds of a music box could be heard creeping forth from the darkness.
さっき1階にいて考えたんだ。君がやられても俺は殺される。なら、まず奴をどうにかするべきだ。
Just how do you plan on helping, Shojiro? Like, seriously.
あなた、何が言いたいの？
She asked a question to which she already knew the answer. She did it to put him to the test. If he wavered even a little, she would have killed him where he stood.
提案。あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
助けられたぐらいじゃ信念は曲げないって言ったでしょ？それに、あなたに何ができるっていうの？
Yeah, I want to know too.
それは青崎が考えてくれ。得意だろ、そういうの。
commander who had the overall picture was responsible for delegating roles to their teammates. It was futile to depend on someone who was unable to grasp the situation or evaluate the enemy's strength. Shojiro was proud to share that he knew this. Well, at least the guy knows that he's in no position to be leading this charge. What a guy. He spoke the truth. Aoko was the only one who knew both Shojiro and the automata. That was why he pointed out that following her orders was the best of his ability. Following her orders to the best of his ability was the only thing he really could do. It may have seemed as though Shojiro had surrendered his capacity for self-thought, but in accepting that he was helpless, he was in fact giving Aoko his complete trust.
"じゃあ、私の指示に 100% 従うってこと?"
Pretty sure that's what's going on.
ああ。それに、これは恩とか義理の話じゃない。
Oh, we're doing it out of a sense of self-preservation, for crying out loud.
一人だと分が悪いから二人でかかるだけだ。善意でも好意でもない。取引って言わないか、こういうの。
His eyes sparkled as if he was bartering in its truest form.
まったく。
And irritating Aoko even more. Oh man. This child must have learned that from Tobimaru, Aoko thought. Though she refused to let him see it, she smiled inwardly. Sure, he had gotten to the best part of her just now. But there were times when defeat was not the worst outcome in the world.
労働と報酬ってわけね。それなら理にかなってる。うん。言いたくないけど。
She relaxed her shoulders and sighed. Her face cracked into a wicked grin, as if her fears had suddenly washed away.
それ、結構私の好みよ。
Aoko repaid Shojiro's trust in equal measure.
結構きついかもね。あなたの役目。
Aoko warned Shojiro, moving as fast as she could without her footfalls causing a din of noise. Shojiro remained near the center of the spiral maze on the second floor.
実を言うと、もう一つ用意しておいた仕掛けがあるの。自分でもやりすぎだって呆れたもんだけど、あなたがここに来るのが遅かったから、ちょっと興に乗っちゃって。
A trap?
仕掛けって俺用の？
Oh man, she went overboard with a second trap just because he was late. Shojiro tilted his head like a squirrel as Aoko freely discussed the final ace up her sleeve.
地下の柱に着火型のちょっとした魔術式を刻んでおいたの。中心の柱に点火することで連鎖的に他の柱に仕掛けた魔術も起動する。
Seriously? You're gonna blow the place up? You'd like bring the place down?
ジャミングを食らう前に作ったものだから直接魔力を叩き込めば、一気にこういくわ。
Shojiro was a little unsettled by how unclear that last bit was.
青崎、こうじゃわからない。できるだけ明確にどこまで爆破する気だったのか白状してくれ。あと、もしかして俺早まったか？
いや、単なる保険っていうか、
Insurance policy?
追いかけっこの途中であんたを見失ったら、いっそ建物ごと
It's a
爆
hell
破
of
し
an
ちゃおうかな
insurance
って。
policy. Blowing up an entire building is a hell of an insurance policy, Aoko. It was her policy to be thorough to a fault, after all. She laughed, embarrassed to hear herself say it aloud.
いくらなんでも徹底しすぎてる。
Faced with Aoko's cruelty, Shojiro forgot about the situation at hand and protested from the bottom of his heart.
何よ、いいじゃない。そのおかげでなんとかなりそうなんだから。
She shot back. Aoko dashed down the corridor, mumbling things that probably would have sent Shojiro packing if he had heard them. The strategy was simple. Aoko would use the escape route to the right and avoid the puppet while making her way down to the basement. Upon reaching the center pillar, she would infuse the formula she had prepared with magical energy and escape. Once ignited, it would take about a minute for the chain reaction to spread throughout the whole House of Mirrors, and another minute for the building to collapse. She would be cutting it a little close, but because she had committed the maze to memory, she was sure she could make it out in time. Aoko was amused that the chain reaction caused by the pillar would clear the barrier that the puppet had placed at the entrance. And even if it was strong enough to withstand the blast, it would not be able to stay standing once the foundations buckled. Sojiro's escape was assured as long as the formula in the basement was activated. Next came the most important part. The automata was at a disadvantage in the obstacle-laden House of Mirrors and was unable to move at full speed. If it was near the center of the second floor when the building collapsed, it would be caught up and crushed by it. So the problem was keeping the puppet on the second floor until Aoko could make it down into the basement.
当てにしたからね、しずきくん。せめて3分ぐらいは引きつけて。
Seriously, you want the dude with no magic to keep it busy for 3 minutes? Ideally, he would be able to keep it busy until she could activate the formula. If that failed to work, him luring it down to the first floor would be the next best thing. She understood perfectly well the danger she was putting Shojiro in. But his lucky streak and running speed were nothing to scoff at.
ただ逃げるだけなら、もしかして、とんでもないことをしてくれるかも、あいつ。
Yeah, the dude is one fast-ass sprinter. Aoko made her way through the hidden passages of the maze, her hopes pinned on Shojiro. Meanwhile, well out of earshot, Shojiro was readying himself for another desperate chase. He calmed his beating heart using a method of his own making. What mattered most was that he remained calm. The plan was simple enough. And Aoko's orders were succinct and easy to understand.
10メートルぐらいの距離を保って、できるだけゆっくり通路を3、4周すること。横道は鏡のつなぎ目で覚えて。ここなら左回りで、6、3、7、2枚目にあるから、 そこをぐるぐる回ってれば比較的安全よ。
It was essentially a looping marathon. As long as Shojiro kept enough distance from the puppet's extended arm to allow her to track him, she could continue to chase him indefinitely. Simple though the task was, Shojiro was putting his life on the line as bait. And then there was the final order to run as fast as he could to the exit when the building began to sway.
結構じゃなくて、かなりきついんじゃないかな、これ
Shit,
は。
more just a little tough. He nervously stuck his head out from around the corner. He could hear the sound of the music box from the other side of the corridor. First, he had to make eye contact with it. Then head through the shortcut on the right and begin their game of tag. He spotted it and braced himself. Closer, closer. Fearing that her arm could fly at any moment, he went over Aoko's instructions in his head.
あれ
However, he could not quite remember which pane led to the first hidden passage. Aw, damn it, Shojiro! The third, the sixth, the ninth? No. He was sure that was mistaken. He was confident he had memorized it moments ago, but his nerves had gotten the best of him, and his head was now spinning. Then, Shojiro realized that the sound of his pursuer was beginning to grow distant, and at incredible speed.
Nani?
It's a spider! It's a spider doll! Oh my god, what the hell? The unusual silhouette of the puppet astonished him. Before it had taken the form of a beautiful girl. But now it made a bizarre transformation and returned to the first floor to pursue her primary target.
いや、それは。
I know shit, this isn't the plan. Sojiro was no longer sure what to do. Before he'd even had a time to mourn his failure, the puppet had vanished out of sight. I'll help, so let me go. Or so he had said, but now he could not follow through.
さて、自分はこれからどうしよ
Alone, he tilted his head in frustration. He spoke into the darkness as if Aoko would be there to answer him. Yeah, no, Aoko is just a wee bit busy. Meanwhile, downstairs, as soon as she arrived on the first floor, Aoko understood what had transpired above her. She did not even have to strain her ears to hear the puppet. Even during its heyday, this attraction had never made sounds like the one she heard coming toward her now. It was the sound of despair, as if a horde of monstrous hedgehogs were scraping their way past the mirrors in her direction.
ドジ、3分どころか10秒持たないってどういうことよ。
Well, I mean, it's not exactly his fault. Rather than buying her time, so Jiro had instead stolen hers. He had one job, to run away. That was all. She cursed him under her breath.
複数の足音。ってことは、二足から多脚に切り替えたのね。
The echoes made it sound like dozens of feet were approaching. Aoko's mind conjured an image of a giant six-legged spider tearing its way down the corridor. That is a disturbing mental picture. Thank you for that. Grr. It was little wonder it was so much faster than before. Its perception of its surroundings through echolocation was of particular use in the dark. Compared to sight-dependent humans, this automata was far better equipped to navigate in this way through the labyrinth of mirrors. If it could not keep pace earlier, that had been because its bipedal mode had made it less maneuverable. Now, the subtlety provided by multiple legs gave it speed that far exceeded that of humans. Their stability. Wow.
どうするどうするどうする
You better come up with something quick, Aoko. The nightmare doll is coming for you. Her thoughts spun as she tried to come up with Plan B. As she knew for sure this was a pivotal moment. If she continued standing still, she had seconds at most. Even in her current state, she knew she could easily neutralize the bounded field blocking the entrance without casting a spell. As she had to do was feed a little of her own energy into it. Aoko could sprint with all her might for a little more than 3 minutes. The puppet had far more stamina than she did. She could only come up with 3 options. The first was to escape through the exit in front of her. The second was to hide somewhere on the more complicated first floor. And the third was to run into the basement and be stuck like a rat in a trap.
なんだ考えるまでもない。
She made the decision with zero hesitation, moving her stiff leg again with determined strength. The oncoming storm was almost upon her. Her resolve firm, she turned and ran, descending into the darkness. No matter what, a finale should be glorious. This would be the Mirror Castle's final scene. 2 humans and a puppet. A young sorceress ran toward the subterranean heart of the castle, while an automatus antique chased its prey into the depths of a demonic dungeon. A minute later, a faint blue charge would ripple through the castle. This was the main pillar in the deepest depths of the basement. Though not critical to the castle structure, the pillar was a visible symbol of it. The girl concentrated her magical energy into a fist and thrust it at the pillar. This was the blow that would bring down the castle. She imagined the destruction as she threw the punch, and the scene blossomed into reality seconds later. It was simple ignition magecraft meant to release the condensed magical energy engraved into the 4 pillars at the corners of the structure. Using electricity as a switch meant virtually instantaneous activation. It happened swiftly and elegantly. A hammer of destruction descended upon the castle of dreams that had stubbornly resisted its fate for 2 years. It was almost a joyous sound. And so the lifeless and abandoned Castle of Mirrors set the stage for its final and most spectacular performance. Aoko's magical energy became an electrical charge that activated the magecraft formula engraved into the pillar. The chain reaction would lead to the castle's destruction.
ご苦労様。でも思ってたよりくたびれてたのね。これじゃあ1分持つかどうか。
The plaza in the center of the basement. Aoko tried to steady her breathing while rotating her magic crest at full speed. She wreathed her arms in blue light, fully aware that she could no longer activate another formula. Her labored breathing refused to settle. She stood at the center of the basement. Without being spotted even once, she had managed to make it all the way to the center pillar. It was a 100-meter dash in 13 seconds flat, undoubtedly a new personal best. She spurred on her weakened heart, knowing full well the fate that awaited her.
入れば追ってくる。地下に行けば逃げられない。当然よね。最後まで逃げ回ろうなんて虫のいい話だった。
Hindsight was 2020. The castle was only a minute away from collapsing completely. If they stayed here, they would both be crushed by the rubble. The puppet certainly did not care. With no life of its own, its sole concern was the elimination of its target, Aoko Awazaki. Indeed, the enemy had been willing to die from the start. She resented her own lack of resolve. It wasn't like her to tuck tail and run from an opponent that didn't fear death.
Vivo insomni, solitare putresque inferes. Ictius meus obitus dies, et meus nativus dies. Te obeam.
そもそも自爆覚悟じゃないあれ。六足歩行とフィンの一撃は使いすぎよ。もう呪詛による魔力補給じゃ間に合わない。
Such a perpetual motion device was only as good as its ability to regulate its energy consumption. Using so many functions at once meant it was burning through fuel quickly and losing the ability to process the curse that powered it. It was using up all the functions it had been given to achieve its aim. This was the pride of a tool, if such things could have ego. Those endowed with sentience could never hope to understand. A beast born to do nothing but run would burn any human who faced its resolve.
ほんともったいない。こういう無茶をするのは姉貴だけかと思ってたけど、いるところにはいるもんね。
But Aoko did not intend a sacrifice play here. She respected her adversary now, and she was done regretting her choices. There was no time to waste.
行くわよ。ここできっかり。
Aoko had every intention of paying it back double for what it had done to her. The energy Aoko had accumulated exploded out of her right leg. She aimed for a single thing, a head-on attack. The enemy responded with a lethal curse that reached for her heart like a set of talons. Humming with power, it meant to rend Aoko's heart and burn itself out in the process. As soon as she saw it, Aoko kicked the floor as hard as she could. Her long hair swirled through the air as she flipped aside. This lateral move almost sent her tumbling to the ground, but a quick swing of her arm allowed her to regain her balance. A shot grazed her arm, the curse scorching her left shoulder. She did not flinch. Aoko knew she could hold on as long as she could continue to avoid a direct fin shot.
Snap!
Off balance and in pain, it took her half a second to recover. The moment she raised her head, she deflected the attack with a fist full of magical energy.
せーの!
If the puppet had a will of its own, its eyes would have popped right out of its sockets. It would have been floored. Shocked at the strong will that allowed this girl to perform a series of moves like this.
Crack!
Aoko's response was instantaneous. While her power was not sufficient to completely redirect the arm's trajectory, it was enough to deflect it harmlessly past her hair.
Initio eraveramos dom bibimus dolores sunt. Nemo adiuvat, nemo adiuvat, nemo adiuvat.
The chant became a curse that robbed Aoko of her vitality. Did it still have something left in the tank? Or was it actually indignant? Whatever the reason, Aoko was easily able to resist its weakened defensive maneuver.
らいだ。
Nice. She just punted it. And her right leg, pulsing with magical energy, shot up into the puppet's chest from below. It was much lighter than Aoko anticipated. Or rather, she felt little resistance. An automata's weight was determined by its internals, the size of its power source. Ironically, it was the superiority of the music box engine that would prove to be its downfall.
Venite, venite, venite. Meum sepulchrum, venite.
Oh, Aoko's screwed this puppet up. A stuttering curse. Having taken the full brunt of Aoko's kick, the puppet bounced from the ceiling to the floor, collapsing in a heap. Its internal construction had been warped by the impact, leaving the drum of the music box that powered the puppet warped as well.
恨むなら設計者を恨みなさい。ダイナモの一つでも積んでいれば、もうちょっとは重たくなったでしょうに。で、
Part of the ceiling came crashing down in front of Aoko, snapping her back to her senses.
ところで今、どうやってぶっ倒したんだろう。
She was so stunned by her own victory that she forgot the House of Mirrors had already begun to collapse.
こっちのがやばかった。
Yeah, no shit. Of course you have to get out of here. Uh-oh. I assume when that mark reaches the circle, it goes bang? There was no time to relish in her victory or pity her opponent. Not unless she wanted to meet the same fate. As the situation stood, she found it hard to imagine getting out alive.
急げ、ダッシュだ私。
She clapped herself on the cheek to motivate herself anew. This was her bounty for finishing the battle in a matter of seconds. Her breath ragged with excitement, Aoko ran for the exit. The collapse was intensifying by the second. Having lost its support pillars, the castle was buckling under its own weight.
この邪魔。
Escaping from the basement was proving to be no easy task. While she was taking the shortest route possible through the maze, she was nearly crushed by a falling piece of ceiling along the way. This was the second time, no, third, she had to deal with fallen rubble along the way. She destroyed the debris on the stairs with magic bullets as she ran. The automata's jamming had long since worn off. The earlier attack had damaged the vast majority of its functions. Here comes the bang! Aoko's breathing was heavy as she ran. Desperation sparked her brain into overdrive. The ceiling seemed to be collapsing in slow motion. Life seemed to flash before her very eyes. Each second stretched into 5. Her frayed nerves made it hard to tell the time. Wait, that thing ain't dead yet? There was debris riddled throughout the stairway, forcing her to crawl it up. Okay. She emerged from the destroyed basement into the collapsing first floor. The plaza was still traversable. At all, it was a miracle in itself, and fortunately for her, the crucial path to the exit was still intact.
よし、ついてる。
The corridor to the entrance was still intact. Yeah, I think we just covered that. The basement maze only extended as far as the plaza, so the entrance corridor wouldn't collapse. Only the ceiling would cave in, leaving the scaffolding surround intact. She got herself this far by telling herself repeatedly that fate would decide whether or not she reached the plaza. Her gamble paid off. It was her lucky day. All she had to do was muster the last of her strength and keep moving forward until she hesitated for a fraction of a second. Was it naivete? A sense of responsibility? She pushed aside the image that popped into her head and continued running down the corridor.
言っとくけど、時間合わせの余裕はないわよ。そんな上等な作戦じゃないし、お互いできることをやったら最速で出口に向かいましょう。
That was 5 minutes ago. At the time, Shojiro had nodded with trepidation, and Aoko had not bothered to ask herself why.
何様だっての私。今は走ることだけ考えろ。
This corridor was giving out too. If she were to look back, she was sure she would see the building collapsing in on her. She was also sure she had no time to waste doing so. Her luck was fading as fast as the building's structural integrity. It was a small miracle that she had escaped serious injury up to this point. And she could not afford even the slightest slip-up. An ankle sprain, loss of balance, or even a sneeze would be fatal. A simple pat on the back was enough to end it. So naturally, shit hit the fan. The fucking... Damn! That doll is back again! There it was, clear as day. From the detritus of the stairway, death had arisen to take her down with it. A corpse that had crawled its way up from the depths of hell itself. It was still operational? And it still was armed with its curses. It had crawled after her, watching as Aoko desperately tried to save herself. The puppet's arm shot forward. While Aoko did not turn to meet it, She could see its reflection in the mirrors.
E salvatio, e salvatio, e salvatio, e salvatio.
Extend, extend, extend. This time, she could not dodge it. There was absolutely nothing she could do. The puppet, with her face, sang.
Venit domum meum. Lut simile somnium. Et pulvere simile quotidianum. Corprebo. Te judico.
For a moment, she could not believe her eyes. It was the last thing she expected to see.
しつこいぞお前。
A fierce expression adorned the face of the boy who had been waiting in the plaza as it smashed the puppet's outstretched arm. Anger really did not suit him at all. His weapon of choice was a fire extinguisher. He must have searched the maze for something to use as a weapon. No, never mind that. It was too crazy to contemplate, but he had stayed behind for her. Aoko stopped the feet as she'd sworn he had sworn would never stop moving, and extended a hand out to him.
そんなのほっといていいから早く
You really do gotta get going. Sojiro tossed the fire extinguisher aside and took off, running. Pieces of ceiling continued to collapse like dominoes. They kept moving with the dust and dirt following in their wake. Their shadows raced through the collapsing corridor with all their strength. The castle was in the throes of death. With a massive crash and a cloud of dust, the final chapter of the fairy tale that had been Kitsy's Land came to an abrupt end. This duel to the death was over. I don't know how bad that damn puppet has managed to survive a lot of crap. I don't know if it's over just yet. For a moment, amidst their swirling emotions, any past enmity was forgotten. The two collapsed on the lawn and basked in strange solidarity. The ringing in their ears subsided before long. A tremor of such magnitude seemed impossible in the amusement park like this. As the sounds of destruction echoed across the park, Aoko addressed the individual at her side.
ねえ生きてる
うん。
チェ
Are you alive? Yes. Don't! While the click of her tongue was adorable, the meaning behind it was anything but.
青崎、あいつどうなった？
見ての通りよ。今頃バラバラ死体になってるんじゃない？
You'll hope it was crushed to bits. Aoko boot fucked it and it didn't kill it. Shojiro sighed, not wholly relieved by her frank response. His reason?
でも、そんな心配より自分の心配をした方がいいと思うわよ、しずきくん。
He wasn't out of the woods yet, after all.
青崎、子供の頃はいじめっ子だっただろ。
可逆趣味はないって自負してるけど。それで、今の自分の立場、わかってる？
You were right back to where we were when we first got to the amusement park. Which is kind of a shitty place to be, honestly. She sat up and smiled. Shujiro hung his head in shame, wondering why her kind tone and expression were so chilling.
面目次第もございません。
かしこまってもダメよ。あの提案には大前提があったわよね。これは取引だって。あなたが役に立つのなら見逃してあげるっていう。
Which he totally didn't.
わかってる。だから面目ないって言ってるだろ。
Yeah, I took one look at Shujiro and was like, nah, I'm going downstairs for Aoko. Shujiro made a show of avoiding her eyes. Like a pouting child. Aoko was taken aback by this sulky display. Perhaps he was angry at himself rather than her. He was not mad because she would not let him go. He was mad that he had not done his part. Aoko sighed for what seemed like the millionth time that day. She could not figure out what surprised her more, his unconditional kindness or her naive approval of it.
じゃあ、覚悟はできてるの？
そんなのはできないけど、約束だからな。結局は何もしていないし。
Not even gonna argue, just gonna let Aoko kill him. I mean, Cat really doesn't know what fear is, does he? It was certainly the case that he had failed to do any of the things she had expected of him. But just then she glanced back at the collapsed house of mirrors. What had he done after failing so spectacularly? He had searched for the extinguisher so he could use it as a weapon. And he waited patiently in the plaza as the maze collapsed around him, just because he thought it was wrong to leave her behind. It was a foolish choice, and the exact opposite of her choice to run towards the exit without hesitation.
ま、それでよしとするか。
She was satisfied, even as she was shocked at how naive she was being. It was true that he had saved her. She smiled inwardly, admiring, if only for a moment, the bravery he continued to show in the face of such extreme circumstances.
役割は果たさなかったけど、アフターケアは合格だし、約束は守らなくちゃね。
With a nod, she pulled herself to her feet.
約束は、いつか守ってもらうとして。
The girl tried to keep a straight face as she offered a hand to the boy still laying on the ground.
結果はどうあれ手助けしてもらったし。
Yeah, just as that puppet was about to skewer your sorry butt, he pelted it with a fire extinguisher, so...
特別サービスってことで、今夜はもう手を出さないであげる。
ん？
She bashfully averted her gaze. Though her profile appeared different than it had in the past, it was clearly still the face of a vibrant girl he met the day he first arrived in town.
何を？
Not you. That's not... We're not staring at Aoko. We don't want to get punched in the face. As if she had felt his eyes on her, she shot him a furrowing glare.
いや、
Frowning glare.
突拍子もないけど、青崎は律儀だなって。
Just glare back. Come on, Shojiro. Just glare back. He took her outstretched hand. Feeling his weight as she pulled him up, she could not help but think that he was about the last person she wanted to hear that from.
ところで、今夜はって言うけど、明日からは？
I mean, it's a fair question to ask.
さあ、ま、その時になったら考えるわ。
Awesome. Great answer. She shrugged her shoulders as if she was not sure herself. The response was so unlike her that it made Shojiro smile. Was it the solidarity of having escaped death together, or their fleeting camaraderie that made him do so? It might have been for this night only, but the air between them was kind and gentle. A lot had transpired, but the midwinter nightmare had come to an end. The pair had overcome many trials and tribulations and could now leave the mirror realm in their wake. But before that... Don't tell me that goddamn puppet's still there.
それはあなた一人で決めていいことだったかしら、青子。
Or is it Alice? The hell's... Nope, it's Alice. What is she doing here? That voice... It was the voice of a beautiful songbird and a merciless machine all rolled into one.
アリス。
Her voice quivered as she spoke that name. The lady in black made her presence known. The night was not over yet. Her name was Alice Kuanji. She was a witch whose name struck fear into the heart of Aoko, an avatar of the night who would allow no witnesses. Take a quick second to save. All right, on to the next episode. Night of the Witches 2. The melody stirred an emotion like nostalgia within them. Something once familiar but now lost to this world. They believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that it would play for all eternity. From opening stanza to final coda, it was a mysterious siren song, merry yet longing, that heralded a return from dreams to reality. The night shook. A song was spun. Now their lost paradise was unearthed. Abandoned dreams, forsaken idols. They all responded to the city, or to the cry of the blue cat. The name of that bell was Diddle Diddle, Banquet of the Night. All fables made possible, all marvels made real, by the magecraft of Alice Kuonji, more magical than magic itself.
随分と身勝手ね。それはあなた一人で決めて
She
いい
likes
ことだっ
that
たかしら。
Aoko's gonna let the guy live
Aoko.
for tonight. Alice sat perched atop the clock tower like a black bird of ill omen. She smoothed the ruffles of her skirt as if she were preening.
アリス、
There was tension in Aoko's voice as she lifted her head. The calm atmosphere from the moment prior had long since been shooed away by Alice's gaze.
あの子、確か。
Shujiro searched his hazy memory. He could not clearly make out her face at this distance, but he was sure he had seen her around town a number of times. Where and when eluded him, however, as the tension in the air kept him from concentrating or from connecting all the dots.
驚いた。随分と仲間思いになったのね、アリス。今夜は私に任せるんじゃなかったっけ？
Aoko readied her guard and took half a step forward. Unconsciously, from an objective standpoint, it almost looked as though she were protecting the figure beside her. Alice's silence grew ever heavier. Her eyes, fixed on the ground below her, were devoid of emotion. An indescribable sense of dread and pressure lay claim over the plaza.
金？
If he strained his ears, he could make out the faint ringing of a bell echoing in the distance. The rippling sound waves seemed unbelievably to be emanating from under the ground.
なあ、青崎、あの子。
黙ってて。
Shujiro stepped back, trying to stay out of the way. It was as though he had been told to go to hell for the crime of asking if the girl was Aoko's friend.
そうね。仲間思いに当てはまるかは微妙だけど、良くない予感がしたから様子を見に来ただけ。
Yes, there's a psycho puppet in the rubble that tried to kill us. There is something wrong.
別にあなたの仕事を疑ったわけじゃないわ。
それはどうも。どうせならもう少し早くその良くない予感とやらに気づいてほしかったけど。でもま、ご覧の通り自己解決したわ。夜も遅いし、さっさと帰っていいわよ、アリス。私の仕事っぷりを疑うわけじゃないんでしょ？
Hey, Draconis Primal. Silence. I kneel. Silence is deafening. Is it? That's unfortunate. Their eyes locked on one another. Alice's stare was uncomfortably cold. Aoko's was bold, daring Alice to air her complaints.
いえ、気が変わったわ。せっかくだし二人で帰りましょう。その方があなたらしいわ。帰りしな、人形の話でも聞かせてちょうだい。
Wait, she knew the puppet was here?
らしいって何よ、らしいって。いいから帰れ帰れ、ぐうたらアリス。部屋に閉じこもって役に立たないムクドリでも作ってろっての。
I'm not sure you should piss her off, Aoko. A disappointed sigh escapes Alice's delicate lips. It seems that the black-clad girl was more astonished than angry.
青子、口にしたくないけど、本気？
Quietly, Alice questioned her roommate of nearly 2 years.
呆れた。二人で秘密を守ると言ったのに。
I mean, yeah, she kinda did say that.
まだ半端にそっち側なの？それとも情でも移った？
Not well. It more of a It started off when it first attacked. It started off just looking like a regular, mannequin, and then we realized while Aoko was fighting it that it actually had Aoko's face. And then we discovered that it had multiple arms and whatnot, that it could fling out as projectiles and then retract. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare puppet. Maybe a little bit. It's all right though.
別に情っていうより私の気分よ。だいたい方針なんてその場その場で変わるもんでしょ。気分ならなおさらよ。そっちこそ一度した約束は絶対守るなんて時代遅れなんじゃない？
Apparently Alice does. Apparently Alice goes out of her way to keep promises she made ages ago. The proverbial knives were out now. No quarter was given or taken. Sadly, their partnership was one of convenience and had not reached the level of mutual understanding. Their versions of friendship was both delicate and unique. When a conflict of opinion arose, each would refuse to budge until the other crumbled. Neither was concerned for the other's plight. And at least for now, that was how they liked it.
そうね。今の暴言はあなたらしいとは思うけど。
Once again, she let out a sigh, even larger than the one before.
言い争いは後にしましょう。そこの彼をいなかったことにするのは、私だけで十分だし。
Finally, she struck straight to the point. As if making to move a chess piece, Alice lifted her slender finger. Uh-oh. He's gonna get forked. Even this simple action seemed mysterious to Shojiro, the same boy who had been hunted by his classmate Aoko Awazaki and borne witness to an automata. Yeah, but these two don't fight with claws, though. Since they're both, like, top-end mages. They don't fight with claws. When they fight, shit gets broken, okay? Aoko's violence and an animated doll. I wasn't saying forking, I was saying that poor Shojiro was gonna get forked. Though perhaps far beyond the realm of logic, these things were derived from reality, and surprised as he had been, there was no need to think of them as total mysteries. However, a giant fork flying at your face is a totally different story. With the thing appeared out of thin air, from seemingly unrelated gesture, he had no word for it besides mysterious. Shojiro stood motionless, captivated by this strange performer's magic trick, as the girl's single-finger magecraft turned into an attack directed at him. A blue light flew from the side to repel it, annihilating it without trace.
やば。
Yeah, no shit, oh crap. Aoko immediately regretted her reflexive shot. Where's the spoon shield? Aoko just used it.
どういうこと？約束を曲げただけじゃなく、ルールまで破るつもり？
The already chilled midwinter air plunged below freezing. Alice looked calm and collected on the outside, but in reality she was sometimes even more hot-blooded than Aoko. This was especially true when it concerned her familiars. Accidentally breaking one would often result in a week of silent treatment. Damn! Somebody's touchy about her familiars getting broken. But against someone who meticulously destroyed her things, Alice was prone to retaliate without warning.
あっちゃー。いつかやるとは思ったけど、ついに激鱗に触れちゃったか。
That probably wasn't the greatest time to do that, Aoko. Aoko sighed at herself. Even she was exasperated by her own stupidity, yet she couldn't help but feel a pang of relief. She did not intend to make any excuses, and she had no regrets. If she had broken the rules, then so had Alice.
青子。
Wait, when did Alice break the rules? I don't remember Alice breaking any rules. If anything, this took a load off her mind. After all, now there was no going back. Aoko never intended to break her own rules. If there was anything for Aoko to regret, it was putting too little power into her shot.
私的に今夜こいつに死なれるのは困るのよ。
Except she only has a problem with him dying tonight specifically.
なんで日を改めて殺しに来てくれないアリス。いいでしょ？たった1日ぐらい。
See? It's only tonight she has an issue with him dying. To Aoko, it was simply natural to take on a pro bono case in defense of an innocent suspect.
それは市場？
悪い？一宿一般の恩義って割と大事にしてるの、私。
私との協定より。
ええ、時と場合によっては。
Shojiro's human rights had not yet entered the agreement, or the argument. You don't have any rights in this argument, Shojiro. Just sit back, shut up, and let Aoko get you out of being dead tonight. The girls were busy pouring oil on each other's flames. The girl clad in black was the first to move, or rather, to erupt.
そう。よくわかったわ、青子。私は彼をここで殺す。あなたは彼をここだけ生かす。
Oh, well, she did promise to let him live tonight, so...
つまり、私と戦う。ということでいい？
Oh, shit.
そんなのいいわけないじゃない。
Aoko bit back the retort. She was very familiar with Alice's magecraft, and knew painfully well how many mystics were hidden in Alice's tiny body. The odds of victory were essentially non-existent. And once the first shot had been fired, Alice Kuonji was without mercy. Whether facing a roommate or a friend, the most beloved family member or a stranger, once Alice began to fight as a witch, she became a heartless, unflappable monster. Aoko advanced another half-step forward, as if to encourage herself. It was too late to back down. The situation was no longer a trivial quarrel over a witness. The bedrock of their so-called friendship had nothing to do with their individual abilities, and everything to do with being equals in will. That is why, in order to stay true to herself, Aoko had no room for compromise or deception.
もちろん、あんたを殺すことになっても、そこのバカは生かしきるわ。それに。
Well, it's on now. Her magic circuits howled as they kicked into gear. Her body, which had mostly been dormant during the battle with the puppet, ignited, preparing to demonstrate its true worth.
それに、どのみち最後には殺し合う仲でしょ、私たち。
Her courage overpowered any fear she had for her opponent. Hadouken! Turning her body, her magic circuits, to become like the barrel of a gun, Aoko fired a magic bullet. It was an exceedingly basic magecraft formula. There was no nature interference, no creating of wind, parting of water, nor hastening of decay. It simply was the process of converting the imaginary activity known as magical energy into something real before releasing it as heat. Thus, Aoko's destructive power was equal to her supply of magical energy. The magic bullets she had used against Shojiro were among the most basic single-action magecraft that did not require an incantation. At her present ability, Aoko's main mode of attack, her magic bullet, could be fired at 3 levels of power. These were at the 2nd level. This required a double action magecraft, a casting through activation of her crest combined with a simplified incantation. However, without blinking, Alice dispersed the shot Aoko had mustered all of her spirit to fire. Aoko tutted in frustration. A swift sneak attack that used a simplified incantation would not be enough to break Alice's guard.
相変わらずお堅いこと。そのから一段と独りよがりになってるんじゃない？
Aoko provoked Alice in order to disguise her own lack of composure. Oh. Tonight's battle is just it's been one thing after another. Somehow Alice seemed delighted by Aoko's bravado.
売り言葉に買い言葉というやつね。こういう勢いだけのきっかけは初めてだけど。驚いたわ。こんなくだらない理由でもその気になるものなのね、人間って。
Alice giggled. Smiling with heartfelt amazement, Alice gestured her left hand toward the earth. Damn! We have been attacked with the dinner set! Countless utensils shot out from underneath the cobblestone paving of the plaza.
しずきくん、後ろに飛んで。
She grabbed his hand as she shouted, jumping backward before he'd even had a chance to respond. As if they had wills of their own, the utensils that had suddenly appeared from the ground gave chase. As the barrier of spears grew around them, Aoko and Shojiro put some distance between themselves and the clock tower.
これで終わり？
Just under 30 feet stood between them and Alice. The lethal weapons that had crumbled to stone beneath them fell short of what Aoko had anticipated. They now encircled the clock tower, making the scene look like the burning of a witch at the stake.
普通逆じゃない？ここは私たちを逃がさないよう槍で周りを囲むものでしょ。
The path behind them was safe. If they wanted, they could try to make a break for the main gate and escape.
いいのアリス。悪いけど、
Oh
逃
my
げ
god,
ら
I
れるな
love
ら逃げるわよ。
Shojiro's face.
私。
That is an awesome expression. If she could just make it back to town, it would be Aoko's win. All she wanted to do was let Shojiro get away for the night, so she could get him back to the city. It would be, for the most part, mission accomplished. Uh-oh. Or so she had thought. Without even offering a glance at her targets below, Alice carefully and lovingly pulled out a bottle from her pocket.
緑のフラスコ？あれって確か。やば！とにかくファイヤー！
Her shot was deflected with ease. Gone was Aoko's earlier bravado. It was only natural. Aoko had indeed grown as a mage. Over the last 2 years of study, her studies had progressed well, and she had more or less gotten the grasp of her roommate's tendencies and abilities. This had made her conceited enough to believe that under favorable circumstances, she'd be able to show Alice a thing or two in a fight. Apparently not so much. Alice uncorked the magical bottle. A gentle breeze caressed her cheek. Diddle Diddle fled as a new player stepped out onto the stage. But from where it would enter, the sound of footsteps, a nostalgic parade, approached. Oh shit. I think we picked a fight with a mage that way outclasses us here. What emerged was a miracle that Aoko Awazaki, an apprentice mage, had never witnessed. The dead came to life. The inanimate awakened. The woods were enveloped by the mist. Fire-breathing lizards lurked in the swamps. Puppets made merry at midnight. Alice Kuanji's slender fingers had transfigured the entirety of the park as if gently stroking the back of an elderly cat.
いいわ。ごっこ遊びをしましょう、青子。
Oh shit. For one night, the wasteland of dashed hopes and dreams was restored to its former glory. Damn. It was an immortal monster ready to devour reality. A dark fairy tale that once unleashed would never let its prey escape.
逃げられるものなら逃げてみせて。どこまで行けるかわからないけど、この夜を越えることができたのなら、あなたの勝ちにしてあげる。
Her declaration marked the start of a desperate battle. The witch in black lunged at her friend, or laughed at her friend. Her musical mirth filled with affection, sadness, and innocent delight. Faded glory returned to Kitsyland. The neon glow of the innumerable lights illuminated the night. Speakers filled the air with the sound of vinyl music. Merry-go-rounds, small and large, whirled around and around. All in all, it made for a mind-bending spectacle. It was certainly possible to power the facility by transmuting magical energy into electricity via alchemy. That said, simply supplying the park with the electricity would not have brought back to life that which was broken. The young woman did this not by mixing chemicals into a compound, but by melting down divine providence into a witch's brew.
まずいわね。アリスのプロイは何個か見てきたけど、今回のは桁が違う。セット。
Stifling her anxiety, Aoko fired up the crest on her right arm. If magic circuits were a mage's engine, then their crest was software that assisted their magecraft. For the fledgling mage, Aoko, this was her trump card. All she had to do was supply magical energy to her crest-based formula. It may not have been the strongest magecraft, but it was hers. Proof that she had been the successor of the Awazaki lineage.
講師2層直流数門。
The pattern of her crest shifted to execute the formula, which then connected to her magic circuits. The process resembled trains catching rails, a puzzle involving dozens of circuits. She constructed it as swiftly as possible without sacrificing the quality of its construction. Instant magecraft casting without an incantation would not be enough to reach Alice Kuwanji. Aoko had gauged the strength of Alice's defenses with her initial shot. She would dial up the power 5 times the next time, driving 20 tons of force into her target. Alice had the protection of thick hanging fog and the dense barrier around her. However, this attack would be more than enough to pierce through both. If Aoko struck home, it would cave in Alice's chest and end the fight. At worst, it would at least knock Alice down from her position atop the clock tower.
そろそろいいかな。
Oh, seriously, dude? As always, there was one guy who spoiled the deadly tension, pulling Aoko out of her killer mode. Shojiro had been looking back and forth between Aoko and Alice in confusion.
それで、どういう話になったんだ？
He said it like he might ask for directions at a train station. Normally, she would have lashed out in response, but his deadly serious tone shocked rather than angered her.
信じられない。慣れてきた、私。
Aoko swallowed back a sigh and returned her focus to activating her crest.
交渉は決裂。ちょっと怒らせすぎた。あの子から見れば、まあいい機会だし、遊園地ごと私を亡き者にしようって腹ね。
Shojiro tilted his head as if begging for a simpler explanation.
私、割とあの子に恨まれてるから。捕まったが最後、どんな風に殺されるか想像すらできないわ。要するに、あんたも私も、あの子をどうにかしないと生きて帰れないってことよ。
そんな、とばっちりだ。
Yes, you did.
まあ、そういうことになるかもね。
As Shojiro protested in a tone wholly inappropriate to the situation, Aoko let another blast rip from her right arm. She was not aiming at Shojiro, though. A little earlier in the day, and Aoko would have been happy to do exactly that. But now, her attention was focused on the girl in black atop the clock tower. Aoko's mind struggled to catch up to her astonishment. She had fired the strongest, fastest magic bullet she had the ability to conjure, and Alice blocked it. That much was to be expected. When Alice set her mind to defending herself, such an attack was child's play. But what just happened? Something Aoko had never seen before leapt to Alice's defense. A team of horses? A plague of locusts? No, those existed in the real world, unlike what Aoko had just witnessed. Normal creatures could not form like that spontaneous cloud of fog and then disappear just as quickly into the night sky. The hell is that thing? I agree. Big what? Big what? Impossible things moved in impossible ways. Alice was not even supplying them with any power source. Those things never needed power in the first place. Those broken and discarded things did not follow the rules of mankind. This was an invasion of fairy tales. Alright, guys, well, I think I'm gonna call it here for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out to today's stream. Be watching for the next episode of One Piece Odyssey. That should be coming out on Friday. So yeah. Also, in the next few days, we'll be posting when the next stream will be, so be looking for that. Alright guys, well, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for meow.